Hello and welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts show. Our goal is to help you avoid common costly mistakes that many people face and to help you have a faster, saner, savvier divorce process. So without further ado, I'd like to please introduce our host, Lisa Decker, certified divorce financial analyst and real estate collaboration specialist in divorce. So Lisa, tell us a little bit more about why you're doing this.
Well, this show is near and dear to my heart because after nearly 14 years of helping people with the financial aspects of divorce, I've realized that there are so many common, costly, and permanent mistakes that we can help people avoid. So we want to share how to avoid them with the do's and making sure that you don't do the don'ts. And we're happy you're here today because we have a very special guest for you, and her name is Rosalind Sedacca, and she is a divorce and co-parenting coach and also recognized as the voice and the founder of Child-Centered Divorce. International Child-Centered Divorce is in the month of January, and this is her 15th year putting on events and sharing this information and resources with the world. And we are so proud to be a part of that and honored to know Rosalind. She is also the author of How Do I Tell the Kids About Divorce? It's a create a storybook guide to preparing your children with love. And she's co-host of Divorce Dating and Empowered Living radio show and podcast. And Rosalind, we are so excited to have you here today. Can you tell us a little bit about why you found the International Child-Centered Divorce Month and give us some background on your history with divorce?
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you today, Lisa. And yes, Child-Centered Divorce Month was created because I know that people around the world are all sharing the same kinds of challenges, regardless of where they're living. And the legal parameters are different in different states and different countries. But from the perspective of being a divorced parent and a divorcing parent, most of us go through very similar situations. And I wanted to provide resources for people that they could instantly download, ebooks and videos and coaching services and courses and programs that can help people right where they are, whether it's before divorce, during divorce, or even long after divorce, because as we all know, the co-parenting process never ends for the rest of your life. And we want to make sure parents are feeling supported. So Child-Centered Divorce Month was my gift to everyone around the world. And I have wonderful people participating in it. And the Child-Centered Divorce Network is my way of letting people know that if you're divorcing and you're a parent, then you need to make your children's needs a priority. Your children have to come first because they're always innocent and they deserve the best you could possibly give them. And that's why I founded the Child-Centered Divorce Network. It was actually based on my own experience with divorce. And after going through the process with all the anxiety and insecurity and fears and apprehension that most every parent has when they're going through divorce. When my son was a grown adult in his early 20s, he came to me one day out of the blue and he said, "You know, Ma, you and Daddy did a really good job with your divorce, and I just want to thank you because most of my friends whose parents divorced either hate their parents or are very angry at them. And I thought you two did a great job." And I let out such a sigh of relief because I was holding on to so much guilt and anxiety. Did I screw my son up? Did I harm him? What was going to happen in the future for him? And that became the catalyst for my thinking about what I learned through the divorce and parenting process all those years. And I decided that I wanted to create a resource center where people can get help that they need. And founded the Child-Centered Divorce Network, became a divorce and co-parenting coach, started writing my ebooks and e-courses on divorce and co-parenting and breaking the divorce news to kids and anger management for co-parents and all the important topics that people need. And it all evolved, and now we're celebrating 15 years of being Child-Centered Divorce Network.
That's a wonderful story. And I love the testimonial from your son. I've heard you tell that story before. You and I go back a long
Yes.
way, and I've never forgotten it. I tell people about you all the time, and the fact that your children do not have to be harmed through this process. Of course, there's going to be things everyone has to work out, but they do not have to be harmed forever, right? They don't have to sit in a therapist chair for the rest of their lives trying to work things out because their parents divorced in such an awful way. You are a model for how to go about this in a way that is civil and peaceful, and puts the kids first. And we have a roadmap at DivorceTown USA, which is, by the way, the sponsor of this show. And at DivorceTownUSA.com, there's a roadmap that we created, and right at the top of that roadmap is Put Kids First Parkway, because really, if you do put the children first in the divorce, everything else will fall into place after. And it really, not using your children as pawns takes them out of the equation, and then you can work on everything else after. So I want to congratulate you on that. What a great thing that your son gave you. What a great gift to come up and say that to you. And what a great gift that you've given back to the world because of what he shared with you. I love that.
Well, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate that.
And what's important for parents to know and understand before breaking the news to their children about divorce? And I know you have a great resource for that. I love the book, the storybook that you've created, but what's the most important gifts and tips that you want to give to folks here?
Thanks for asking that. You want to remind your children that they are not at fault. Children innately start believing that maybe if I didn't get a bad report card, or if I wasn't fighting so much with my brother, or if I got better grades in school, or other things in life, that maybe my parents wouldn't be divorcing. And of course, that's not the case. Even if parents are fighting about the children, it's never the children's fault. It's their own parents' relationship issues that are the responsible. So kids need to be reminded not once, but continuously before, during, and after the process that they are innocent and that never at fault. They need to be reminded that their parents will both always be their parents. The divorce doesn't mean you're losing either parent. And that's crucial for kids to understand. And in the same realm, they need to understand that their parents will always love them. Sometimes kids will think, well, if my parents divorced, maybe mom or dad is not can divorce me if I don't behave well or something. And they need to be reminded that our love for you is eternal, and we're always your parents. We're always going to love you. And that's the bottom line. And they need to hear that very clearly. They also need to understand that this is about the change in the form of the family. This is about change and not about blame. So it's not the time for parents to bring up, if your dad wasn't an alcoholic, we wouldn't be getting a divorce. If your mom didn't have an affair, this wouldn't be happening. We don't bring adult information into the equation for children. Even teens can't fully understand and comprehend the complexity of adult relationships. We certainly can't as adults. So we want to focus on we are a family. We will always be a family. And this is the change in the form of our family. There's now 2 homes possibly that you're going to be spending time in, and every situation is different, but we are still a family. And that's a very calming, stable piece of information for the children to understand, that even though there's change is normal in life. The seasons change, our hairstyles change, our grades in school change, our sports teams change. Change is part of life. This is a change in our family, but we will continue to be a family. And then we want to remind parents that it's up to them to create the future. So we tell the children it's going to work out because your 2 parents are working on this, and we're going to make it as smooth and easy as we can. And that's when I step up and say, listen, you have choices to make, and these choices are impacting not only you, but your children. Why not learn how to reduce the conflict, reduce the tension, and reduce the anxiety, and create as amicable and peaceful a process as possible? And when they start with that mindset, it's so much easier to get into the legal parameters, the financial parameters, and all the other issues that are at hand because they are already set in understanding they're going to create what I call a child-centered divorce.
You know, I just want to tell you that those are such wise words, and you've lived them so well. And I have inadvertently lived that as well. I've never been divorced. However, I am a grandchild of divorce. And long before I was ever born, my grandparents went through divorce at a time when it was very taboo, but it was also very contentious, and it fractured our family so that I never knew half of my family growing up. I never knew of them. And it wasn't until I was just a few years ago in my 50s that I actually got to meet and getting to know families, and I missed a lifetime with them. What a sad situation. And I really don't want to ever see anyone go through that. Remember, you know, even if you are divorced, you'll still see each other at events like graduations and birthdays and births of children, grandchildren, and weddings, and all kinds of things that will bring parents back together. And you certainly don't want to be the reason that your children don't feel comfortable at any of these joyous events. And so, you know, hold your head high, take the high road, and be the parent for your child. Be the parent that does the right thing.
Well said, Lisa. Absolutely.
All right, let's see where we're at here. And we're doing great on time too. And by the way, this is a live show. And for those who stick around after, we will have Q&A live. Now, we don't tape that portion of the show for privacy reasons. So you'll be able to ask and get answers to your questions here live after the first segment of the show. And, you know, it just occurred to me, I forgot to introduce my assistant, Marcella Kripe. Marcella, give a wave there. I couldn't do this show without her, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge
Hi, everyone.
that. All right. What are some of the most important divorce mistakes that parents must avoid? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. So studies have proven time and time again that conflict, fighting around children, does the most damage to them emotionally and psychologically. So that means fighting in the same room, in another room with the door closed, on the phone, anywhere that the conflict is around the children, because it changes them, it affects them, and it emotionally is devastating for children. Also very important is bad mouthing one another to the children or around the children. So children are watching you, and if your body language is disparaging about their other parent, if you're talking to a family member or a neighbor and you speak badly about the other parent, if you're talking to the kids and you say, gee, you sound just like your father, you're lazy, those kinds of comments are so hurtful for children. And sometimes we're just not even aware that we're doing it or saying it because it's so comfortable for us in our dialogue, but it's hurtful for kids. We must be very mindful about not bad-mouthing the other parent. We also don't want to be sharing adult information to children, even teens, because their brains aren't developed fully. And if a child can't fix a problem and they don't have the solution, then they shouldn't be part of the adult information. When if you want to sit down with them in their 20s and say, this is what was behind the divorce, make that decision at that point. But let your kids, including teens, not be impacted by the emotional drama and trauma that you're going through and that you're trying to unravel, because it changes who they are, it affects their brains, and they can't undo hearing these pieces of information. So it creates little adults in children. They start wanting to parent you, to help fix the situation, to be the big man and the big woman in the house for you. It sounds very noble, but what is that doing? It's robbing your children of their childhood, of their innocence, and suddenly they're taking on a role that they're not prepared to take on. And even as teens, they're not prepared to take on parenting you. So we have to be very conscious about all of those things, because it's so easy to fall into those traps. And another mistake that I see so often is letting your kids be your messenger and tell daddy I'm going to be available at 8:30, not 7:30. It isn't your child's place to be relaying those messages. Sometimes they forget, sometimes they make a mistake, sometimes they intentionally screw it up because kids will play games with parents and take sides. It's much easier to use the online co-parenting tools that are available, or texts and emails, and keep your information between the two adults involved, and don't get your kids involved in extra burdens. Nor do you want to make your child your confidant. That means confiding information, how you're feeling emotionally, your hurts and pains, because again, it robs them of their childhood. And this is a place where you want to talk to a coach, a therapist, clergy, a close family friend, someone who has professional expertise, and don't let your children be burdened by that huge emotional task of trying to help mom or dad fix an issue that obviously is not easily fixable, or they wouldn't be getting divorced.
Absolutely. And, over the years, again, I've seen so many people make those mistakes when it's an emotionally charged situation. Things just blurt out at times. So if it's happened, acknowledge it, talk it out, talk with your therapist, your coach, and then move forward in the right way.
And can I add also, be willing to apologize. It's very helpful for a child to see a parent sit down eye level and say, mommy made a mistake. I should never have said that. Daddy wished he didn't make that decision. And from now on, we're going to do things differently. It's really helpful for children to see that even adults make mistakes. And when we own them, we can move on and we could learn how to forgive one another. So you're a role model, and keep that in mind.
That is a great point. That's just a good life lesson overall, being able to say, I made a mistake and I'm going to do better. And what are the best ways to successfully co-parent after divorce? What are some tips that you can give our listeners on that?
Well, first, you want to be aware of choosing and picking your battles. There's so many things that your ex may be doing differently or wrong that you don't believe is the way to approach things. And you may want to micromanage the children's diets and where the time they go to bed, and discipline challenges that are different from the way you handle things. It's normal and natural to be very judgmental and critical about our co-parent because you're divorced and there are reasons behind it. However, pick your battles and only stand up for things that are very important, that are crucial for health and character and morality, and don't get involved in the day-to-day tasks of how the other parent is handling things, because if you're fighting about everything, when the important things come up, they're not going to have the same impact, and it's going to weaken the value of what you're trying to say, your parenting message. And it's good for you to learn how to let go and let things pass, because we cannot control everything in life. We certainly can't control any other person other than ourselves. And this is going to be a process. And then over time, another partner, your ex is going to find another partner, and there's going to be another person in the picture, making life even more complicated. And if you're struggling with controlling everything and managing everything, you're going to create a lot of pain and stress and anxiety in your own life that's needless. And again, your children are watching you. Learn communication skills. There's ways of addressing issues. There's ways of saying, I have a problem with something, without pointing the finger and saying, you always. So just the subtleties and language differences will make a difference in the outcome you get. Learn how to communicate effectively. I have a lot of information in my programs about that. And learn what to say and when to say it. And if you're not sure, get some help and support, because there's so much support out there. There's groups, and there's coaching professionals, and there's many resources. Co-parenting is a lifelong experience. So remember, the more you're cooperative, the more cooperation you're likely to get in return. because this is a lifelong experience, there's going to be times when you are not available, when an accident happens, sickness happens, things have to change, and you want to be able to contact your co-parent and say, I just can't do it on Saturday. This came up tonight, and let your parent, your co-parent, jump in and say, that's fine, we could adapt, because they're going to expect the same thing from you. The more cooperative your relationship is, the more flexible it is, the better it is for you, and the kids will appreciate it, because life just is life, and there's going to be bumps in the road all along. So the co-parents who are so rigid about their time, their date, their all the structure that is put into a parenting plan at the divorce, those people and are going to court because of minute changes and inflexibility, are just creating a lot of stress and static in their lives for themselves and for the kids. And the kids are not going to be appreciating the tension, because most of all, it's conflict and tension that impacts the children. And you want to be able to give them the best, smoothest, easiest life. Childhood is difficult enough as it is without the burden of adding a lot of divorce issues on top of it that shouldn't be part of their life. We want to simplify life for them as much as possible. So if you ask yourself those questions, and there's a very good question that's related to co-parenting in general. Ask yourself, would I still be making the same decision if we were still married? So if something comes up regarding health or discipline or vacation time or other issues that are just a normal part of parenting, you want to make sure that your answer is the same as it would have been if you were still married, as opposed to saying, well, I would have said yes, but now I know I'm going to screw him and I'm going to say no because it's going to hurt it. When you're focused on hurting your ex, you're inadvertently hurting your children. And so keep your parenting as clean as possible. Parenting is difficult enough as it is, and you want to be able to know that that other parent is focused on parenting as well. Your parents first and your divorced second, but you're always parents first.
That's great information. Great. I mean, I don't have anything more to add to that. I will say that, again, children are watching, and they're seeing, even if you don't realize it, they're seeing what's really going on behind the scenes, which parent is taking the high road and which is just trying to, put a knife in someone's back and turn. And eventually they grow up, and like your son will let you know what they thought of how you handled yourself.
Yes, they hold you accountable, and you're going to get that payoff one way or another. And I wish for all of my clients and for everyone in the world the happy ending that they deserve, meaning that your kids can thank you for the way you handled the divorce, because that's a gift to them.
And, I recall something, Roz, from many years ago when you interviewed me on one of your podcasts or shows that you've had, and you had another guest on, and this woman told the story of how she had a very contentious divorce with her ex. They were not talking at all. They, really went through a long, hard battle over the kids. And then within a few years, things started to simmer down, and she changed and he changed. And eventually they were able to become friends again. And they actually went on family vacations together. And her takeaway from that was, look, you can begin anew at any time. Even if it was bad along the way and got worse through the divorce, you can always step back and make some changes and start over and try again, a new angle, a new way. And it won't work for everyone, but I have heard that happen many times over the years. So don't give up hope. Don't say that will never happen with my ex, because you don't know. Maybe something happens in their life that gives them a new perspective and they want to make a change. But if you're not open to it, then that won't allow that energy to come in as well. So always be open to better ways of being and doing, and along the way that those changes may improve for you and for your family, and especially for your children.
Yes, I totally agree.
So as we wrap up this part of the show, what are some insights and tips that you would like people to take away from this today?
Well, there's a very good question to ask yourself, and if you can, with your co-parent, and that is, what will our children say about how we handle the divorce when they're grown adults? Because that'll definitely sober you up before you get really aggressive in trying to demean the other parent, and realize that we are in this for the long run. And yes, graduations and weddings and grandchildren and all of those things are ahead. I know it's hard to believe it when you have a 3-year-old or even a 13-year-old, but your kids are going to grow up, and they're going to hold you accountable. Remember too, that you have in your power ways of changing and shifting things. So if things are not working so well now, there are strategies, there are tips, there are insights that you can get from coaches and therapists and divorce experts to help shift the energy in the family dynamic, and you could start over. And children will appreciate that. Everyone is ready to start over if it's on a better level. So ask yourself, what can we do now to make life better for our kids than it's been in the last few years? Because in many cases, the last few years before divorce have not been good in the family. The anxiety and stress and tension at home may have been raising in many levels. And now you have an opportunity to say, a new start, a new beginning. What can we do now for everyone in the family? And also be very aware of self-care and self-help for your own being, because you need to love yourself and be there for yourself first. Forgive yourself for the divorce. Work on forgiving your ex, which means cutting the cord with them so that you're not feeling owned and manipulated and controlled by their energy anymore. And then you could move on in a much more successful way.
Cutting the cord and being in control, right? And that doesn't mean controlling, but being in control of your own thoughts and behaviors. You can't control anyone else. We can only control ourselves. And so having help, whether it's a coach or a therapist or resources that you're gathering and utilizing and learning, can go a long way in helping you with all of that.
Absolutely. And there's one more thing I wanted to add. We have a moment. There's 2 gifts that you need to give to your children. And the first one is the freedom to love both their parents. And that means both their parents, regardless of how you may feel about that other parent. Give them the freedom not to feel guilty or ashamed of loving both their parents, and the gift of letting them be loved by both parents. Too often, one parent says the other parent doesn't deserve your love anymore, and does unspeakable things to alienate the relationship. Give your children the right to be loved by both their parents, and for both parents to love them. And that's the greatest gift of all you could possibly give to those children. And they will thank you when they're grown adults.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful.
Thank you both. Sorry for cutting in.
No.
We're coming down to the last 2 minutes. So I wanted to say thank you to both of you very, very much. Roz, the information has been incredible and excellent. So before we go, we just want to quickly share with everyone some of these amazing resources that we've been talking about so that everyone can access them. So very quickly, we want to share with you the DivorceTown Roadmap. This is available at www.DivorceTown.USA. As you can see, there are lots of different ways to divorce, including Put Kids First Parkway, which we strongly, strongly encourage you to do. You're also welcome.
Hang on, Marcella. I just want to correct one thing. That's DivorceTownUSA.com. Just so we
sorry.
No problem. We want people to find that. No problem.
I wanted to flip forward through to this slide, because this is actually what Roz is doing this month with International Child Centered Divorce Month. So very quickly, Roz, in about 30 seconds, if you could share with our audience what they can find here.
Yes, so we have divorce experts on 4 continents around the world who are providing instant downloadable gifts. So you get ebooks and video programs, coaching support, tip sheets, all kinds of resources to help you before, during, and after divorce. And it's at that website, divorceparentsupport.com. Is all you need to do is to sign in there and you'll get to the free gifts page and take advantage of as many gifts as you want.
Thank you so much. So
There
very
you-
quickly, here are
I
your
just want-
resources. Go ahead, Lisa, because you're going to close us out because we just have about 20 seconds.
Okay, I just wanted to say that you can also find at that site our divorce financial fitness kit. And we thank you for coming, and you can find all the resources that we've talked about and more at DivorceTownUSA.com. And also we have a free support group every week. So join us, and thank you for coming today. And Marcella, quickly, can you tell us about next week, what we'll be talking about?
Absolutely. Next week, we're going to continue the same theme of child-centered divorce, and we're going to actually be sharing with you tips and resources to use before, during, and after the process so that you can have the best result possible for you and your kids. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.